So today I'll be reading from two sources, but before that we'll do a supercharged meditation. Just find yourself by a window, somewhere sunny. It's not very sunny where I am, but I do see the sun over here. I'm just going to do 5 minutes of full acceptance. going to be reading from Impro, Improvisation in the Theater, about spontaneity by Johnstone. Let's see how these theories work out in practice. Suppose I say to a student, imagine a box, what's in it? Answers will flash in his mind, uninvited. Perhaps, Uncle Ted, dear. Uncle Ted is dead. If he said this 10 times, then people would laugh. And he'd seem good-natured and witty, but he doesn't want to be thought insane or callous. Hundreds of toilet rolls, says his imagination, but he doesn't want to appear preoccupied with excretion. A big fat coiled snake. No, too Freudian. Finally, after a pause of perhaps 2 whole seconds, he says, old clothes, or it's empty and feels unimaginative and defeated. I say to a student, name some objects. He tenses up, pebbles, beach, cliff. Have you any idea why you've blocked? I asked. I keep thinking of pebble. Then say it. Say whatever occurs to you. It doesn't have to be original. Actually, it would be original to keep saying the same word, pebble, another pebble, a big pebble, a pebble with a hole in it, a pebble with a white mark, the pebble with a hole in it again. Say a word, I said to someone else, cabbage. He said, looking alarmed. What's the first word you thought of? What? I saw your lips move. They formed the O shape. Orange. What's wrong with the word orange? Cabbage seemed more ordinary. This student wants to appear unimaginative. What sort of crippling experiences must he have gone through before he came to me? What's the opposite of starfish? He gapes. Answer, say it, I shout, because I can see that he didn't think of something. Sunflower, he says, amazed that he didn't know what was the idea that was about to come out of him. A student mimes taking something off a shelf. What is it, I asked. A book. I saw your hand reject an earlier shape. What did you want to take? A tin of sardines. Why didn't you? I don't know. Was it open? Yes. All messy? Yes. Maybe you're opting for a pleasanter object. Mime taking something off a shelf. His mind goes blank. I can't seem to think of anything. Do you know why? I keep thinking of the sardines. Why don't you take down another tin of sardines? I wanted to be original. I ask a girl her word. She hesitates and says pig. What was the first word you thought of? P. Tell me a color. Again, she hesitates. Red. What color did you think of first? Pink. Invent a name for a stone. Ground. What was the name you first thought of? Pebble. Normally, the mind doesn't know that it's rejecting the first answers because they don't go into the long-term memory. If I didn't ask her immediately, she denies. She was substituting better words. Why don't you tell me the first answers that occurred to you? They weren't significant. I suggest to her she didn't say P because it suggested urination, and that maybe she rejects pink because it reminds her of flesh. She agrees and then says she rejected pebble because she didn't want to say 3 words beginning with a P. The girl isn't really slow. She doesn't need to hesitate. Teaching her to accept the first idea will make her seem far more inventive. The first time I met a group, I might ask them to mime taking a hat off, or to mime taking something off a shelf or out of their pocket. I won't watch them while they do it. I'll probably look out of the window. Afterwards, I'll explain that I'm not interested in what they did, but how their minds worked. I say either they can put their hands out, see what it closes on, or else they can think, they can think first, decide what they'll pick up, and then do the mime. If they're worried about failing, they'll have to think first. If they're being playful, they can allow their hand to make its own decision. Suppose I decide to pick up something. I can rub my hand down and pick up something dangly. It's an old rubber used contraceptive, which isn't something I would have chosen to pick up, but it's what my hand decided to close on. My hand is very likely to pick up something I don't want to, like a steaming horse turd, but the audience will be delighted. They don't want me to pick up something respectable to mime, like a bucket or a suitcase. I asked the class to try doing the mime, both with and without thinking, so that they can sense the difference. If I make people produce object after object, then very likely they'll stop bothering to think first and just swing along being mildly interested in what their hands select. Here's a sequence that was filmed, so I remember it pretty well. It was filmed, so I remember it pretty well. I said, put your hand in an imaginary box. What do you take out? A cricket ball. Take something else out, another cricket ball. Unscrew what's inside, a medallion. What's written on it? Christmas 1948. Put both hands in. What have you got? A box. What's written on it? Export only. Open it and take something out. A pair of rubber corsets. Put your hand in the far corners of the box. What have you got? 2 lobsters. Leave them. Take out a handful of something. Dust. Feel about in it. A pearl. Taste it. What does it taste of? Pear drops. Take something off a shelf. A shoe. What size? 11. Reach for something behind you. He laughs. What is it? A breast. Notice I'm helping him to fantasize by continuously changing the set. The category of questions. Now I'm going to be reading from Conversationally Speaking by Garner. And this is about starting conversations. I think this is all on the same theme of like being original, taking initiative kind of, and not judging ourselves. Alan, your author, said, I decided to marry her. Courtship would be a mere formality, but what to say To begin the courtship, would you like some gum? Seemed too low class. Hello was too trite for greeting a future bride. I love you. I'm hot with passion was too forward. I want to make you the mother of my children seemed premature. Nothing. That's right. I said nothing. And after a while, the bus reached her stop. She got off and I never saw her again. And Aristotle said, many a friend is lost for lack of speaking. Starting conversations with strangers is easy if you want to know how to go about it. Here's a few simple strategies which people have found useful. First, seek out people who are likely to be open to talking with you. Most people are delighted to have the opportunity to meet someone new, and may consider anyone who's alone and not heavily engrossed in activity to be a good prospect. Especially good prospects display their interest by smiling at you, looking at you more than once, or having their arms and legs uncrossed or legs crossed toward you. Members of the opposite sex who are attracted to you may show in several ways, such as combing their hair, straightening their clothes, rubbing some part of their body or an object like a cup or chair, letting you catch them looking at you and then holding their gaze an extra second before shifting away. Once you've decided you're going to meet, the next step is to smile, make eye contact, and speak. If you're especially anxious, there's a part on chapter 12 about reducing anxiety when meeting strangers. Although many people sit around groping for the perfect opener, research shown that what you say is relatively insignificant. Negative openers, however, won't generally encourage people to talk to you and will probably set a depressed tone for the relationship. I remember once coming up to a woman in a nightclub in Wheeling, West Virginia, and saying by way of introduction, "Boy, I can't stand all this loud music." She replied, "Well then, why don't you get out?" What you say doesn't have to be wonderfully clever, dripping with meaning. Ordinary comments are just fine. What's important is that you take advantage of opportunities to make contact and get things going. If the other person's interested, I'll probably give you some free information, which will help you, which will help the two of you find common interests and get more personal. Thinking up openers is simple. You basically have only 3 topics to choose from: the situation, the other person, and yourself. The only 3 ways to begin: asking a question, voicing an opinion, stating a fact. Your major goal in the beginning is just to show interest or involve the other person, so the best way to start is usually by asking a question. Closed-ended questions are fine, so as long as you don't pose too many of them in a row. Stating an opinion also works well, and it certainly works better than just stating a fact. When you recite facts like the bus is late today or apples went up 5 cents a pound, you haven't involved the other person, so she's left to try to involve you by asking a question or voicing an opinion, which she may not well do. Talking about the situation. Starting a conversation by talking about the situation you're both in is usually the best of your 3 options. It's less likely to promote anxiety than is talking about the other person, and more likely to promote involvement than is talking about yourself. To begin a conversation about the situation, look around, find things that interest or puzzle you. Use dual perspective. Find something to see that the other person is also likely to want to talk about. This is especially easy to do if you're together in class, on the job, or in a special interest group such as Parents Without Partners, PTA, Sierra Club, or Young Democrats or Republicans. After you've asked your question or make your statement, listen carefully for the response, especially noting any free information you may want to follow up. Here are some examples of openers. Bear in mind that they're no better than anything you're likely to come up with, and that saying anything is better than saying nothing. In a classroom, what do you know about the teacher? I was absent yesterday. Or what did we talk about? Or what do you think will be on the exam? At a horse race, who do you think will win? Why do you say that? In a sauna, boy, they really stirred up the coals in here. Tell me, what good is that supposed to do? At an art museum, what do you suppose the artist wanted to say? And then in parentheses, the author writes, I spent an hour asking a question in front of a Picasso and got so involved in discussions, I accidentally asked someone who came back for a second look the same question. His second reply, to tell you the truth, I don't think Picasso has a whole lot to say new in the past 25 minutes. In line for a movie, what have you heard about this movie? What made you decide to see it? At a market, I noticed you're buying artichokes. I've always been curious. How do you prepare them? To a neighbor, your lawn is so green. What's your secret? What's that you're working on? At a laundromat, where do I put the detergent in? The woman I asked this of hilariously described the time she added too much and returned later to find an avalanche of suds all over the place. We then discussed how many people assume that more is better when it comes to vitamins, which led to our discussion about our own experience with vitamins. Excuse me, where do I put the detergent in? Talking about the other person. Most people like to talk about themselves and will be pleased to respond to your questions or comments. Before you begin, observe what the other person's doing, wearing, saying, and reading, and think of something you'd like to know more about. For example, that's an interesting jacket. What does that insignia stand for? You're the best archer. Where did you train? That was a fascinating comment you made to the board. Tell me, why do you think solar energy isn't being developed more quickly? To a policeman, I'd like to join the force. How do I go about it? Or, you look lost. Can I help? Say, I haven't seen you at Amway meeting. My name is whatever. How did you happen to get involved in Amway? While jogging. What kind of running shoes are those? Why did you choose that brand? At a restaurant, mind if I join you? And it says here, author Henry Miller never liked eating alone and often used this opener. Just imagine the hundreds of new people he got to know, people he would never have met had he gone to the nearest vacant table. It's my experience 20% of people you ask will decline, and they'll usually apologize, saying they're expecting a friend or have lots of work to do. At a party, how do you happen to be at this party? Australian communications expert Alan Pease once tried out the old cliche, haven't I seen you somewhere before? And his most memorable answer was probably, I work at the zoo. Some psychologists favor opening remarks which directly convey your interest to the other person. For example, hi, you look nice and I'd like to meet you. Or hi, I noticed you here several times and I thought I'd come and introduce myself. They contend that this method has far more impact on others than do the more subtle openers, and that with so many people and stimuli around, it's vital to have impact. Talking about yourself, common though they are, especially among lonely people, openers about yourself rarely stimulate conversation. Dale Carnegie once noted that strangers are far more interested in talking about themselves than in talking about you. I agree, I can't help but enjoy Dr. Art Lange's funniest opener. Hi, I'm Art. How do you like me so far? Anyway, hope you enjoyed that and wishing you a blessed day.